Hi and welcome back to Greenfly Gamer, and on this week's episode we're going to basically ask the question, what makes a retro game retro? Okay, Greenfly Gamer here, and on this particular episode we're looking at what makes a game or game console retro. If you like the video, please put a big old like, comment or subscribe to my channel if you like to see more content. So I'm asking the question, what makes a game or game console retro? Now, most people will go, well, it's the age of the console, and which, yes, of course, but is retro cool? Now that goes down to the point where you got to look at if the game, looking at it, is it cool? I mean, there's a lot of games out there for the Super Nintendo. You know, Barbie's Big Day Out, weird random game I'm thinking of. You know, is it good just because it was on a console way back then? Is it good? Is it what you consider retro? Is it just purely the time we're looking at when it was made where it makes it retro, or we're actually looking at the game? Now, you look at NES. Now, a lot of those games I would consider classical retro. So you know, your Super Mario's and all sorts of games that they have on their system, Shinobi, and I don't know, there's just so many you got to look at, and these are the games that all the future generations have copied on their mechanics and their presentation, their gameplay, the graphics. Just as I said, they just keep on getting better and better as each generation goes by. But that's, again, that's what we're talking about, generations. Now, I came just after the NES started, so my first console was that little one in between. I had a Game Boy, and then I went on to the Super Nintendo. I also had a Commodore Amiga. Now, would we consider that retro? I guess. I don't know, it's a bit of a weird thing. We don't really consider PCs or personal computers retro. I think it's kind of the cool aspect of the consoles that everybody attaches, but I don't think, in my own opinion, that they think PCs are retro because they're always evolving. They don't have, hey, look, this generation, this one's here. I mean, right now I edit my YouTube videos on a laptop that's nearly 7 years old. I mean, because they just go on and on. Whereas I think consoles, they have their life and then they get put aside by the next generation that comes in. So I'm just so every generation has their own little aspect of what they think retro is. Now, I also got asked the question, cart versus CDs. Now, is a CD based system retro? Is it? I don't know. Personal opinion, I don't think it is. Because CDs is still a format we still use today, whereas carts, I mean, they've certainly made a small little comeback with the Nintendo Switch. That's just a ginormous SD card. But the actual carts themselves, kind of, they've died out. The last one was the N64. That Nintendo did, and then they went on to the next one, which is the GameCube, which was the first CD based system. Now, the first CD based system that really, now, yes, you had the add-ons with the Genesis. You can go with the more failed ones, the CDI, Philips CDI, and even had a Jaguar had a based system. But I think truly the first system was I think the Sega Genesis, not Sega, sorry, Sega Saturn, and then the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, then the PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and then from there. But the first one was, I say, the Sega Saturn and the PS1. Now I wonder, do we consider those retro yet? You know, because they're basing their technology is still current. in a weird way, their format. So I don't know, it's a bit of a weird question to ask. If you've got any comments, please just write them down. Another thing, I think another thing we should ask about retro game systems, have they stood the test of time? Looking at everything, yes, I think almost all of these systems, of all the main systems, have all stood the test of time. People are still picking up an NES. I mean, just over Christmas we had the NES Mini came out and everybody went bonkers for it. I mean, I can't even find one now. I'm not paying $200 off eBay for one. Ridiculous prices. But this is what I mean, where game consoles have stood the test of time. The games have stood the test of time. You got the failed, well, I say failed, but not so successful consoles. Say the Atari Jaguar. Yeah, that system came out. It didn't sell very well in America. It sold okay in Europe, but it only had a couple of really good games. And so people, with only one or two games in its little library that were people wanted to play, has it stood the test of time. The system itself was leaps and bounds ahead at the time. And it just, again, I don't think it stood the test of time because, even the games it did do well, they don't play as well as they could have. Like, say a Super Nintendo game, even Star Fox with its primitive polygons, but at the time it was amazing. But I think personally that still stands a good game for its gameplay. It's a nice rail shooter. It's slow and graphics are very basic by comparative standards, but we're looking at the gameplay. It's like Super Mario, the gameplay is brilliant. Yes, it looks like like a really old game, and people but it stands the test of time, and they've got it over T-shirts and everything now, and that's why I think the retro cool aspect comes into it. That's what people, they're logging on to their childhood memories onto the system. So going along, I mean, I think the Xbox and PlayStation 2, GameCube, those, because the graphics are so much more polished than the previous generation, I think that's when people start looking at it going, they don't have that sort of retro cool. I mean, all of them got fantastic games, some of the best games of any generation. But I don't think people will look at those games and go, hey, that's retro. Because, they haven't got the blocky polygons that they did in the PlayStation 1 and the N64 and the Sega Saturn. Before that, you got the 2D sprites. Now, the people are still doing 2D games now. The big indie circuit, going through games right now, going through the games industry, because it's nice and easy to program for. So I look at it and go, are they retro? It came out, they may have a retro look. Now a couple of games have done this, had the retro look, and then going back but the gameplay just wasn't there. So it's a difficult line. And so I kind of really do draw the line. I don't think the CD formats are what I would consider retro just yet. I don't think they're really going to go full retro for. I know it needs to be a little bit more time. Maybe when the next generation of systems, your PS5s, your whatever Xbox, whatever it's going to be called, Nintendo Switch, they've gone back to cartridges, but I know we're going to go into the next phase, which is going to be full digital download media. So at some point these disc systems are going to, they're not making disc CDs anymore, or Blu-rays, so they're going to be looking at it and going, that'd be retro. So we're going to see what the next generation is, then I think people will start looking at CD-based systems more retro looking by then, and of course the graphics will be so bloody mind-boggling brilliant that people will look back at the PS2 era and go, my god, you guys managed to play those games? Look at the crappy graphics that you have. So yeah, so if you have any comments about what do you think makes a retro game retro, or retro system, please leave a comment. Again, if you like this video, please put a big old D, and if you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much, and see you next time.